Welcome to the Strength and Courage podcast, a podcast focused on helping you lead with strength and courage in every situation you face. The Strength and Courage podcast is hosted by Ben Thomas and Hassan Kibirango. The Strength and Courage podcast is brought to you by our sponsor, Be to the World. Be to the World focuses on bringing fullness of life to the future of every child impacted by war. Stand with the millions of children in countries recovering from war so they can receive a transformative education. Start your journey as a Be to the World ambassador by making a monthly donation at www.betotheworld.org/donate. And now to Ben and Hassan for today's episode.
Well, welcome to episode 5 of the Strength and Courage podcast. Today, I'm so excited to explore the conversation around mentorship. And Hassan, thanks so much for all that you're going to share, and really excited to dive in. So let's say we get started.
Thank you.
All right.
Good to be here. Yeah.
Thanks. So Hassan, tell us first, why is mentorship relevant for leaders today?
Mentorship is relevant because the world is changing, and we have people who have gone ahead of us, gathered experience over different spheres of their own influence or work that they do, and we have a generation coming before us that it would help them to be able to get to some of the objectives they have by just sitting down and drawing wisdom and drawing knowledge from people who have experienced the things that they want to do. So mentorship, ideally for me, is somebody of more experience walking a journey with somebody who would like to require more experience in a certain field, either a career or something that they would like to attain in life.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and I think we're recording here in Kigali, Rwanda, which in 1994 experienced the 94 genocide against the Tutsi. And I think one of the observations I've had is just the human capital that was lost.
Yes.
Right? We lost a whole generation of elders. Like, it's rare to walk around Kigali and see so many men or women with gray hair.
Yep.
So even if you could just dive into our unique context, yes, and just the void that's been there, yep, and why that makes us even more excited and passionate about mentorship for this generation and future generations.
Yeah, it's interesting you talk about our context here in Rwanda, Ben, because a couple of years ago, I was watching a televised event of the government leaders here, and they saw the need to take on younger leaders and mentor them as ministers or different leaders that are leading the nation currently, because, like you said, most of the people who are in the active labor force were either killed in the genocide against the Tutsi, or they practiced killing, or they were indifferent. So if they didn't die, they fled. If they didn't die, they were in prison. So there was a huge deficit then of older, wiser people taking on younger people. So there was a huge influx of many young people into the labor market with no direction. So a couple of years ago, I was watching this televised event where they made it their personal pursuit as leaders to say, look, yes, we are busy, we're running the country, but it is our responsibility to handhold the younger generation, because they need to walk side by side with us to learn the things that we're doing, so that when it's their turn to be in places of leadership, they're not lost. And I thought that was really, really amazing, that it came from the leadership, despite their busy schedules and the things that they're doing. So that's what makes mentorship a very, very important element of raising leaders, because you have a vantage point as a mentor of seeing what they can't see yet, of having gathered experience that they are yet to gather, and you pass that on, and you even share in areas of struggle and weakness, and we'll talk about that a little bit later. But yeah, so for me, our context is a beautiful picture to see where the older leaders are being intentional about this idea of mentoring the young ones.
Yeah. Thanks for sharing that and sharing that context. So you defined it a little bit, but just so the audience has a really clear definition of mentorship. How do you define mentorship?
So my definition of mentorship is it can be a formal or an informal engagement between either two people or a group of people or even peers with the bid or the goal to help somebody achieve whatever it is that they're looking for, a goal. And it's also for the purpose of the growth of one person, who in this case would call a mentee. So a mentor comes alongside a mentee. Usually a mentor is either senior in age, but mostly experience. And their goal is to make sure that the mentee grows, garnering the experience that being passed on to them from the mentor. Yeah, but I have been through different facets of mentorship myself, sitting on either side.
Yeah.
I've been a mentor. I am a mentor to many, but then I've been a mentee. Mm-hmm. And I have a formal mentorship program that I run. I've been running that for the last seven years. It's structured, it's formal, it's group mentorship. But then I have men that I work with individually who have experience in certain things that I'm looking out for. So one could have a experience in leadership. Another one could have experience in organizational management. Mm-hmm. Another one, there's one that I follow because I'm also a spiritual leader who mentors me in spiritual leadership. So I don't have just one mentor.
Yeah.
I pick and choose, but I don't have many as well because I have very little bandwidth.
Yeah.
To be following so many people at the same time.
Yeah, that's great, Hassan, and kind of ties into a few of the questions that I know will be important for our listeners for us to dive deeper on. So talk a little bit about personally how has mentorship helped shape your leadership?
Oh, wow. I remember I lost my father when I was 11. And our family was large, as you might have experienced being on this side of the world. Many families, you have men who marry more than one woman. So my father had 7 wives and 18 children. So when he died, he was the patriarch, the glue that held us together.
Yeah.
So he dies, and then literally I was 11 and just entering the most prime season of my life with its teenagehood, where my identity was being formed, where I was learning literally manhood, and I lost direction. I really lost direction. So somehow there's a man that picked interest in me when I turned 19 years old, leaving high school and transitioning to university. And this man just started showing me what it means to work hard, what it means to be a man of integrity, what it means to lead yourself. And that experience for me, I was just a lad, just transitioning from my teenagehood, really drew me towards this idea of mentorship, and I took interest in it. And beyond him, I started looking for other men who many acted as filled the void of my father that wasn't there.
Yep.
But my leadership has largely been formed and shaped by men and women that have been gracious enough to give their time to me, and I value mentorship. Really, I value it so much because it's been very beneficial to me.
Yeah. That's great, Hassan. Thanks for sharing that. Let me ask you a few questions that maybe we didn't talk about, that we didn't prepare you for. But what are some characteristics you look for in a mentor?
High on the list for me is integrity.
Okay.
Yeah, because it's such a high value for me, because that's what I want to be.
Right.
I want to be a man of integrity, a man who espouses character. So that's one characteristic that I look for in a mentor. Just knowledge and wisdom, and that comes with time and age and experience. Those would be the two foundational characteristics that I look for in a mentor. And also, what is a plus for me is one's ability to also walk a mentorship journey. So when I look for a mentor, I also look out for, are they mentored as well, or do they pursue the idea of mentorship, because when you receive something well, you can understand how to pass it on. So I would say those three are key for me.
Yeah.
I don't know about you, Ben Thomas, because I know you've gathered a lot of experience through life. What would your characteristics of a great mentor be for you?
Yeah, thanks. I would say really in the last, 15 years or so, I've really focused in on this idea of mentorship. So similarly to you, men or women of wisdom, they've walked the journey and they've been successful in the journey. And that doesn't mean they haven't had failures, but they've been successful in the journey. They've been able to overcome the setbacks. None of them are perfect. So certainly don't look for perfection, but really wisdom. And are they demonstrating a life that I would want to be true of me when I get to their age, right? And so I look at relationships with their wives, their children, their grandchildren, the organization that they're leading. Those are all things that I look for as I look for characteristics of mentors. And then secondly, and this is a practical one, but also a big one, are they available?
Yes.
Right? Because we all go through different seasons.
True.
And sometimes in a season, people might not be available. And that doesn't mean that they think less of us.
Yeah.
It just means that their time is limited. So one of the first appointments I put on my calendar is my monthly mentorship calls. And so typically I try to have a once a month rhythm with at least 2 to 3 mentors at a time. And so those are often the first appointments that I book on my own calendar, because I know the value that brings. They have no vested interest in the organizations I lead. Their interest is in me
and your growth
and my growth. And I know that if I'm wrong, they're going to tell me I'm wrong. I know, like, they're outlets for me. When you get to be the boss, your circle of friends is pretty small, limited. And so I look forward to those calls. So wisdom, a life that is attractive to me when I get to their age, and availability. Wow. So those would be the 3 characteristics that I look for.
And speaking of availability, I find that the people that are most sought after for mentorship are people whose time is a limited resource.
Yes. Yep.
And one of the ideas about mentorship is, and if there's somebody listening to us out there and they want to seek out a mentor, it's important for you to know how busy this person is, and if they're able to be kind enough to give you a slot, be honorable of their time and respectful for that, because I realize that the higher people are up there and the more they have to offer, the more limited their time resource is. So there's an element there of being respectful of their time and using their time wisely. And coming with the preset questions for them, and really, really valuing their time. I don't know if you have anything to share on the resource of time, because I find that the more I grow personally as a mentor, it becomes more limited for me. But yet mentorship is such a value for me. I really like the idea. So what I did, because I have very limited resource for time, I opted to a lot of group mentorship, where I mentor 12 young men at a go. So I'm able to create time for that, plan around it. It's difficult to do one-on-one. Like if those 12 were seeking out to me individually, I probably wouldn't be able to. So the time factor there, I find it to be such a resource.
Absolutely. Yeah. So a few tips, I think, that I've employed. One is not to be offended if someone says no. Right? Especially in this journey of starting Beat of the World. I reached out to a handful of other founders, and there were 2 in particular that really gave of their time, but not forever. And so, but what they started with me was so helpful. And then they've pointed me to different resources along the way. So not to be offended. Two, you have to be the one that's proactive, right? So I have
seeking mentorship.
Yeah, I have to, as a mentee, I need to reach out. I need to make it as easy as possible for the mentor to say yes. So I have my assistant work with their assistant to say, okay, and I'm assuming their assistant has said yes to, I'm going to meet with Ben, put it on the calendar. Okay, great. So what are the parameters? What does that look like? And just have it be a standing schedule that you work on. And then two, valuing their time, right? So if it's an hour, don't take an hour and a half, right? If you know you're going to run longer, don't assume that they have more time. Say, hey, there's still more I need to talk about. Would it be okay if we scheduled another time? Or do you have some time now? And giving them the option of what that looks like. So those are a few tips I would say in terms of time. The first time I had an executive coach, we would meet every other week through a leadership development program I was a part of. And I remember I had to set the agenda. And the rules of the program were, unless I gave them the agenda 24 hours in advance, they wouldn't take the meeting.
Oh, wow.
And that really helped me. At first I was like, wait, what is this? But it really helped focus the conversation. Almost every mentor I've had opens up with the question pretty quickly, okay, Ben, where would you like to focus our time today? And so
you set the agenda.
Yeah, so having a focus for your time helps them. And then maybe this is the last thing that I'll share on this is your role with mentors is certainly to ask questions, but primarily it's to listen. So, there's that verse in James that says, let's be quick to listen, slow to speak, slow to become angry. In a similar way, what I've found with my mentors is they have a lot to say, and they might not be speaking about exactly the issue I'm talking about, but they're telling me about an experience that they had. And so I want to listen well and then draw from that
and apply to
and
your
apply
context.
To my context.
Oh,
so
wow.
that's a huge part of mentorship is using the two ears you have and say, okay, this is what I'd like to talk about. Here's what I'm going through. Have you experienced something similar? Can you tell me about a time when? And you just let them talk, and you're taking notes. You're taking, you're grabbing key takeaways. Living on this side of the world, most of my mentors don't live here. And so even when I travel, I will maybe block out a half a day to visit with one of my mentors and not schedule anything else during that time, and just have some uninterrupted time to be able to be face to face, sit on a couch, grab a meal, a coffee, whatever. As great, technology's great, phone call, Zoom, all of that, but so I'll even plan that into my travel schedule, is to plan some time, because I think that helps. That certainly helps me get better, but it helps the organization get better as well. So I don't shy away from that.
That's good.
Yeah.
Amazing.
So let me ask you, Hassan, as we continue on, is how does mentorship relate to the concept of strength and courage?
Oh, wow. It takes strength and courage to mentor, because there's just something about mentorship where, the mentor is put on a pedestal. So the mentee comes in with the idea that he knows it all, he's been there, he has the answers. And it seems to be their point of view as mentees, and that can put undue pressure on a mentor. So also effective mentorship requires a level of vulnerability and talking about areas where you failed.
Yeah.
And that can open you up to, depending on the attitude of the mentee, really ridicule. It's just a sense of vulnerability, and it takes courage to be vulnerable and say, look, I don't have it all together. I know you came to me for answers, but these are my wounds. This has been my failure, and this is what you can learn from as well. And generally, there's just a natural instinct of we don't want to expose failures to everybody. Certainly not somebody who comes in for just a few sessions of mentorship. So there has to be an area of vulnerability on the part of the mentor to be able to give a full view to the person seeking mentorship that, hey, yes, you see success in me in A, B, C, D, but there have also been areas of flaws or failures or things I just didn't get right. And that vulnerability right there takes courage and takes strength.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, I think if you're listening today, I think I would encourage you to do two things. One is, if you don't have a mentor, identify 2 or 3 people that you can consider reaching out to. Secondly is, if you've demonstrated any amount of wisdom in any aspect of your life, identify people that you can give of some of your time to, unpaid time, just as a way as you think back to how you grew up and how you got to where you are. It's this idea of being grateful for and grateful to, right? Who are the people that you're grateful to as a result?
If I may speak into that, because I have personal experience in that area, I've received a lot of value for my life and for my leadership from mentors. Of course, it's a mindset I carried based on the gentleman I told you who took me on. And I said, as long as I live, I'm going to identify gentlemen and women to be able to pour into me, and I'll value them, their time, and be respectful. But then I realized there's such a generation of young men and women that do not have mentors, but also do not know how to seek mentors out.
Right.
So I created this mentorship program 7 years ago called God's Dozen, where I identify young graduates, college graduates who either have just started off in the employment world and have a sense of direction but are a little bit lost. So I bundle them together and I tell them, if you have time, I have time, and I will give you a year of my time. So what I do is I schedule 2 hours a week and then half a day once a month.
Wow.
And I've refined that over time.
Sure. And
now I have a schedule. So right now it's every time we are putting out a notice that we are getting mentees on for the following year, it's oversubscribed.
Yeah.
But it is that idea of being grateful for and grateful to, is to say, this has been so meaningful for me. I'm willing to pass it on free of charge so that I can help young men and young women to be able to find perspective, purpose, and direction in whatever area of their lives. So 3 years ago, my wife came on board. So we took on 12 young ladies as well. So right now we mentor 12 young men and 12 young ladies as well. But it's that idea of saying, look, they might not be able to seek me out, but I will seek them out. Now that can be a bit difficult when you're doing a one-on-one.
Right.
And it's a bit awkward when, you find somebody who says, I want to mentor you. Like it's a bit awkward. It's lopsided. It's easier when somebody sees a gift in you and they want to draw something out of you. But for group mentorship, it is possible. Yeah. And it doesn't have to be so much of your time. You could give them an hour a month, 2 hours a month. Right. But there is immense value.
Absolutely.
For men and women of wisdom and experience to consider freely and willingly opening the conversation of mentorship and not waiting, because chances are people won't be as free to come to you as they would like to.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, as we wrap up, 2 questions for you. One is, what advice would you give someone who wants to get started with a mentor?
Identify what the qualities that you would like from a mentor, but then what is it that you want to draw out of them? Do you want to learn a certain skill set that they embody or they've learned and have experience in? So put down a list of things that these are the things that I want to learn from a mentor, but also this is the kind of person that I would like to seek out, and make a few phone calls. But putting the principles that we've talked about in this podcast in place. Value their time. Don't be offended when they say no, because chances are if you're seeking out somebody of great experience, that they might say no, but that shouldn't discourage you. You can find somebody else. But for me, ideally, the things that you're to look out for is, what is it that you want to achieve? Do you have a goal? Put it down and seek somebody to help you. And then the other thing is, you need to have a time frame. Because busy, experienced people, they don't have the bandwidth to walk a very long distance with you. So if you can have a time frame to say, 3 months of your time, 1 hour a week. But it has to be agreeable to them. Sometimes it can be just a single meeting, a single coffee meeting. So you need to put the time factor into play. How long do you think it's going to take you to get the answers you need from an individual? So that they can invest that time with you. I'm reminded of some counsel I received on how to start with a mentor. In addition to what you said, is you don't have to commit right away. Like, take them out for coffee, take them out for a meal. Try it out. Do you connect? Do you not connect? Is there more conversation that you're wanting to have? And if there is, invite them to the next time. And, if after 2 times there's still more conversations you want to have, then set up a formal conversation of, hey, I've really enjoyed these times. How would you feel about once a month, an hour coffee where we can just connect together? Would that be okay with you? Right? And so that's another way to be able to do it. And for those that are organizational leaders, I have found adding some mentors on my boards have also been helpful. Oh, wow, that's smart.
It's a great way for them to add value to what I'm doing, and a great way for them to see behind the curtains what's going on. And again, that doesn't work for everyone. You don't want a board full of your mentors, but
you also want some skill sets.
That has been really helpful for me as a practical way of showing them honor, as well as getting their insights and input. So I would say, as we wrap up, Hassan, just want to encourage leaders that are out there, leaders in all walks of life, and especially in the developing world, in the majority world. If you don't have a mentor, please take some time to engage with one.
Absolutely.
So Hassan, let me ask you, is there anything on the topic of mentorship that is still burning in your heart that you want to share as we wrap up?
For me, it's just a general principle on mentorship, is that a great mentor is the one who goes the way and shows the way. And you cannot be effective in leadership except you make it part of your leadership goal to seek out mentors, because the amount of time you will save, the amount of mistakes you will avoid by just sitting with somebody who has gone the way to show you, hey, by the way, the pitfalls are here, there's a cliff there, there are roadblocks there. Even some will be gracious enough to open their networks to you so that you're able to achieve certain things faster. I believe as somebody seeking mentorship, you need an element of humility and just a hunger and a desire to know that there are people out there who have done what we want to do with great success. And by the way, rarely have I seen a situation where I've sought out a mentor and they've said no. It happens, but it's on a very rare occasion, because they also feel honored and privileged to be sought out, that people see this value in them, and many of them are willing to pass this on. So it should be a leadership attribute for anyone who wants to grow in leadership, to seek mentorship. Absolutely vital.
Well, Hassan, thanks so much for your insight. It was great to have this conversation around mentorship. Listeners, thanks so much for joining us today. And we're really excited to be able to equip you with what we've learned and experienced through mentorship. Thanks so much for your time.
We hope you enjoyed today's episode. Thanks for joining us today on the Strength and Courage podcast. Please share this episode with your friends and tag us on social media. Ben and Hassan are active across Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and LinkedIn. You could follow Ben on Twitter and Instagram at Dr. Ben P. Thomas. You could follow Hassan on Twitter at Kibirango. Send us your questions via Twitter and we'll get back to you. Thanks to our sponsors at Be to the World. Visit www.betotheworld.org/donate to become a Be to the World ambassador today. Until next time, lead with strength and courage, because at least one person in this world needs you too.